Travis, thanks for stopping by the Integrate Town Hall.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me to join.
Very appropriate background that you have, the world map. I guess we could start there, and we'll get back to the Cotopaxi story later. One of the, you are an interesting guy. You're fun to read about. You and I have never met. This is the first time we're connecting, but I really enjoyed reading about your background and some of the interesting things you do. I would love to start with your survival trips. Maybe first you could tell folks what they are, and then I have some questions on different ventures that I was able to read about and some of the experiences that you've had.
Yeah, so interestingly, my family, when I was 4 years old, we left the United States for my dad's job, and so we moved to the developing world. And so my dad was a bit of an adventurer, so I spent a lot of my childhood in the outdoors. We grew up, we made our own raft and we floated the Amazon River fishing for piranha, or we'd go make our own spears and survive on uninhabited islands, spearing fish and eating coconuts. I thought that was normal behavior, and but it really kind of for me helped me discover this love for the outdoors. And so I spend every year I go spend some time out in the wild. I'll go to an uninhabited island and spearfish and eat coconuts. I'll go to the Amazon and spend a week there catching and eating crocodile or other random things. So it's become a passion for me.
So most people go on vacation to kind of relax and restore, maybe sit on a beach or go to an all-inclusive resort and not think about survival, right? Maybe our daily lives, certainly as CEOs, sometimes we're thinking about survival yet. But just add a little bit more context. You go to places and you bring no food, and you survive off whatever's there for 7 days. Let's start with your Exuma trip. I believe I read it was 7 days on a boat, sailing through the islands with no food, and you had to survive on what you caught. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So, and just to be clear, I like all that other stuff too. The all-inclusive resort or the, the relaxing, that sounds fun as well. But I do like, there's something special about this feeling of going into the wild and knowing that it depends on you. And if you want to eat, you have to go catch your food. And if you want to have a shelter, you make your shelter. Sometimes I'll bring a tent, depending on how bad the mosquitoes are. But yeah, the Exumas was a fun. I've done that one a couple times, and I get a little boat. It's basically someone said Naked and Afraid. It's basically like Naked and Afraid, except I actually wear some clothes. But we basically sail island to island in a little tiny boat, a little sailboat. It's basically like a rowboat with sails. I mean, there's no engine or anything. There's nothing glamorous about this little boat, but it's just big enough to fit, like 3 people in your gear, and you have a machete and mask and fins and a spear, and just kind of go island to island, look for reefs and jump in and hopefully spear a fish if you're lucky. And it's fun and challenging.
I mean, is there a backup plan? Is there like a satellite phone just in case? I mean,
yeah, I bring a satellite phone, and I have had to use, I've had to use it once. Not to get rescued, but I needed a little bit of help thinking through a problem. So I called a buddy of mine, but yeah, for the most part, they go as planned.
It reminds me of that Regis Philbin show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? You had to phone a friend. What was the problem you were trying to solve?
Yeah, so I was with a cousin of mine. We do a bunch of adventuring together, and we went out. We took some kayaks. These folding kayaks called oru. They fold up like origami, so you can travel with them. You can carry them on your back, like in a backpack. And we kayaked 50 miles offshore in Belize. There's an atoll, and there's a reef that just barely comes above sea level. So it's like you're surrounded by water in every direction. On one side of the reef, it's 5,000 feet deep. On the other side of the reef is like a shallow lagoon in between this atoll. So it's like 2 to 25 feet deep. And it's near the Blue Hole, if anyone knows the Blue Hole. And we were sleeping on the reef. And so based on satellite imagery and some other things, we figured that this part of the reef was probably above water all the time. And oh yeah, here we go. So um, so we just slept on top of this reef. And as we jumped in the water, speared a fish, cooked it up right on the reef. And then as we were sleeping inside of our kayaks. They kind of open up so you could sleep in them almost like a pod or a hammock. And as the night came, it was beautiful, the most beautiful sunset maybe I've ever seen. It was just magical. And from one moment to the next, it went from this perfectly serene moment to terrifying. The waves were crashing on this reef and the tide kept rising. And pretty soon there was water just rushing underneath us. And we thought the tide might keep rising. We kept expecting it to turn, but it wasn't turning. So we called a buddy and said, we told him we just needed him to check the tidal charts to see when the tide was going to turn. And if it wasn't going to turn soon, we needed to figure out a plan to be able to basically not get washed away into the ocean. And so fortunately, we called him back 10 minutes later and he said, you know what, it's like 4 minutes away. And sure enough, in 4 minutes it turned and we were good. But there was a moment where it was like, okay, now what? We need a plan B. This is not going to be good. So
it's sobering and humbling to realize the power of Mother Nature. I would typically experience it helicopter skiing in Alaska or Canada in my ski days, and crevasses that if you make a left turn you're going to fall 1,000 feet, or avalanches or things like that. It really kind of makes you feel so small, and and not very powerful in moments like that. What was your Brazilian Amazon trip like? I heard you had an encounter with a jaguar.
yeah, so and actually I will say too, I'm not the athlete that you are, Jeremy. So I,
I
for
don't
me,
know about that, Davis. These
um,
stories are pretty crazy.
but the Amazon. So I spent a lot of time in my childhood in South America and in the Amazon. This year, I wanted to take a few buddies of mine. We have a group of entrepreneurs that we do a trip each year, and we wanted to go to the Amazon and kind of experience that. So we went and we actually found a guide. We usually do these trips without a guide. This is the first time we've ever had a guide. And there was a part of me that thought, we don't need a guide. Like, we can do this on our own. But I thought that until the night came, and we were trekking through the jungle, sleeping in hammocks in the middle, like in the trees. There's this canopy above you with monkeys swinging up in the trees, and you can hear animals like at night. And the guide pointed out we were hearing these like guttural roars, and we're like, what is that? It something about it. Like, you don't even need to know what it is. You just know you should be scared. Like, we've evolved to be scared of certain noises. And he's like, that's a jaguar. He said, I want you to sleep calmly, but don't sleep deeply. Like, be aware, but like, don't panic, basically. And we had like fires set up all around the camp. We had candles set up around our hammocks, which in my head, I'm like, how is a candle going to stop a jaguar from wanting to eat me? And he explained that like jaguars have evolved to be afraid of fire. And one of these nights we actually heard a jaguar maybe 100 meters away attacking a sounder of pigs. And like, you could hear the squealing, and it was just like, I am like so scared right now. So it was a pretty cool experience. But for me, it was a great lesson learned about surrounding yourself with experienced people in your life. And so during this crisis, I've needed some guides. Running my business, it's like I've had to, call other CEO friends. And Jeremy, I'm sure you've done the same, where it's like you've counseled with other people that have maybe been through things, or you're using them as a sounding board to talk through some of the challenges you're facing. And a lot of times it's because of those guides, those experienced friends that you have, that you can get through the night.
When you're kind of experiencing survival, right? I mean, that you're literally trying to survive. And you practice that, I guess, as a discipline through these trips. How does that impact your ability to run a company? And I guess specifically, like, does it make you you must not be afraid of anything. Like, as it relates to like corporate challenges, they're much smaller than life and death. And I would imagine, that it might be helpful, some of these experiences to get through COVID, or, I think your first business you built during the Great Recession, and, talk a little bit about that connective tissue between the two.
Yeah, no, there's definitely what I've seen. Like, I'm so passionate about entrepreneurship, and I'm so passionate about these survival trips. And and a few other things in my life. But I've definitely seen this connection between surviving in the wild um, and surviving through a crisis, managing through crisis. And a big part of that is like in the very beginning, it was about, you know, when you get in a survival situation, there's no like wait and see period. You know, it's not like, hey, I'm gonna feel this out for a few days before I take action. You have to take action immediately. It's like you prioritize water, shelter, food, fire. Like you need those things or you will die. And in a crisis, it's the same thing. It's like, how do I get, you know, sustenance, cash? You know, how do I preserve cash in every possible way? What actions can I take immediately? And it's always, you know, you can always take action and then in the future make some adjustments. But if you wait and see, you might find yourself in trouble. So there's definitely been some, you know, some great learnings from those experiences.
You've spent a bunch of time in Brazil. I think either your first or second company was baby.com in Brazil. Fala português?
Falo, você fala.
Desculpa, eu não falo português. Just a little bit. My wife is Brazilian, so I'm learning because we're, as I mentioned on the last town hall, we're expecting our first child in January. And she's only going to speak to the child in Brazilian or Portuguese, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And so, you know, because we want our children to be bilingual. So yeah, I'm crash course over here trying to like, you know, be able to be part of the conversation. But
Well,
yeah, so
that's a big deal. I'll tell you what, there's nothing better, more fulfilling than being a dad or a mom. That's amazing. Good for you.
No, thank you for that. We're really excited. What was it like living in Brazil? Were you in São Paulo or Rio or
Yeah,
where were you based?
Yeah, we lived in Sao Paulo, and we had I have 4 kids, so
Wow.
I'm way ahead of you, Jeremy. But you know, when we lived in Brazil, we had 2 daughters, and it was awesome. You know, they were going to school and, you know, speaking Portuguese, and Brazil is just a beautiful place, wonderful people, fantastic food. You know, but it's also a place that for me, I mean, it's very special because it's like this connection I have with my childhood of being in Latin America, being in South America. But every day I drive through a favela, through a shanty town on my way to work. And every single day it was a reminder of this duty, this responsibility that I feel to use my life to help others. And these people, I mean, they're just as smart as us, or smarter. You know, they're just as hardworking. They have dreams just like we do. And they just don't have the same opportunity. And not because they lack anything. They were just born in a place that was much harder. And so I definitely feel a deep sense of responsibility to use my life to be of help to others.
And that leads us to Cotopaxi, because not only is it a great outdoor brand, and I didn't know your story when I bought your bag. I didn't know anything about it. I was looking for a backpack that folded open on both sides to be able to, like, you know, skip the suitcase. And so I didn't know anything about it until I just bought a bag, and I loved it. But really, it's an outdoor brand with humanitarian at its core. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's exactly what the brand is. You know, I even tell people we're not a backpack company, we're not a jacket company, we're not an outdoor brand. We are a brand that represents certain values of giving back and serving others, and that's really what's at the heart of this business. And when I was in Brazil, you know, I'd made a commitment back when I was in college that I was going to use my life to help others. And I had a couple experiences that were really kind of transformational for me. One was when I was an intern. I did an internship in Peru. I really wanted to go back to Latin America. I wanted to give back. And so I got this nonprofit internship. It was unpaid. You know, but working for this nonprofit was just like one of the most fulfilling things that I'd ever done. And it felt so satisfying. And when I was in this little town called Cusco, I don't know if anyone's been to Cusco before. If you have, like, comment in the chat to brag about it, because it's an awesome place.
It's a high town, right? Like 7,000 feet, 8,000.
Yeah, yeah, very high. Maybe even 9,000 feet.
Maybe even 9. Yeah, yeah. It's at the base of Machu Picchu. That's kind of like the stopping point for anybody that wants to go and visit Machu Picchu.
Exactly. Yeah. Someone can probably Google it for us and tell us in the chat how high it is, but
Probably
it's
9,000. I bet
something
that
like
sounds
that.
right. Yeah.
But it's, so I was in Cusco. My first day there, I sat on a park bench, and instead of eating in a little restaurant, I wanted to sit in the center of the city, in the Plaza de Armas, and
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to like soak in the magic of this place. It was just so magical to me. And so I'm sitting on this bench eating, just looking around, and all these little kids like ran up to me, and they all were like trying to sell me things like finger puppets and postcards and candy. And having grown up in Latin America, I just immediately connected with these kids and just started joking around with them. And after a while, they all kind of ran off. And there was one little kid that sat next to me on his shoe shining kit, and he kept insisting to shine my shoes. And it took me a few minutes to convince him it's not possible to shine tennis shoes. So he wasn't going to get any work from me. But he kept sitting there, and after a while, I realized, maybe he's sitting here watching me eat because he's hungry. So I offered him my food, and I had never seen somebody eat like that. It was shocking to me. And I just decided that night, I was like, I need to go find this little boy again. His name was Edgar. He was 9 years old, but he looked much smaller than that. And I went into the main plaza that night. I was looking for him. He was always easy to spot. He had the same clothes on every day, and he had a hole in the butt of his pants with no underwear on. And so always easy to spot from a distance. And I found him straight away, and he was so shocked that I'd come back to find him. And he took this food, and he ran over and he started sharing it with all of his little friends, and they were eating this food with their hands. And it was so touching to me that he was like sharing this food. And so this became the highlight of my day every day, finding Edgar. And my last night in Cusco, I was walking down the street. It was close to midnight. I could see my breath in the air. And as I was walking down the sidewalk, I looked across the street and I saw two little boys cuddled against each other, trying to stay warm. And as I got closer, I recognized that one of them was Edgar. And so I woke him up and I was like, Edgar, why are you sleeping in the street? I could tell he'd been crying because I could see these like tear stains on his dark little cheeks. And he told me that someone had stolen his shoe shining kit. And he was too afraid to go home. His dad was an alcoholic. His mom depended on him to help feed his family. He didn't go to school, and all he did was work all day. And I didn't have much cash. I gave him what I had. And that night I could hardly sleep. I was just so worried about this little boy. And the next day I got on a bus to leave Cusco for the last time. And as I was on this bus going around the main plaza, I looked out the window and I saw Edgar, and he saw me, and he just ran next to this bus waving goodbye. And I had just enough time where I slid open the window, and we said goodbye to each other. And it was on that bus that I made that commitment. I was going to use my life to help kids like Edgar. And so that's really what Cotopaxi is all about. We use our profits to support poverty alleviation. We've used all of our profits to date to do that. We employ refugees in our local community. We use our supply chain to impact lives. And it's been the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. It is so satisfying.
What an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that with us. I think, for a lot of us have traveled internationally into poverty-stricken areas like Cusco. I think we all have kind of some story like that, but it sounds like your connection with Edgar was really, really deep. I guess you couldn't get his, phone number or, anything like that. Probably couldn't keep in touch.
So actually really interestingly, Jeremy, so I've thought about Edgar every day since 2001 when I met him. This was a month after September 11th. I was in Peru during 9/11, and I felt very lonely. And I felt, like the rest of the world, so confused, and maybe discouraged about where we were as a group of humans. And for me, it was just, the Edgar gave me hope. And after I started Cotopaxi, I was telling my cousin, the one that I did the Belize reef trip with, I was telling him about Edgar. He'd known about Edgar for years, but I was just kind of talking about him. And he said, you know what? You talk about him all the time. Why don't you go find him? And I was like, that's impossible. I don't even know his last name. He was in 9 years old, almost 20 years now ago. And so, but we ended up going back together. I had 2 pictures of him, and we went into the main plaza, and like through a series of small miracles, we actually found Edgar. And I'm in touch with Edgar every single day.
No way.
Yeah. And
Wow.
it's actually one, I actually spent a day with him. He told me his story. Like he was orphaned when he was 13. His mom died giving birth to his younger brother when Edgar was 11. And then his dad died of alcohol abuse a couple of years later. So he's raising his younger siblings. He wanted to take me to his house. He was so proud to show me this house that he'd made himself. We got to this house, and it was a house made of mud, and it had a hole in the ground for the toilet. And there was like a part of me that was like so discouraged to see this. But then there was another part of me that was like bursting with joy and pride because he was so proud to show me what he'd made. Hmm. And so the last 3 years, he's been going through a program where he's learning to be a tour guide. And the deal we made is as long as he did well in school, I'd help him with the cost. And so he sends me pictures of his report card, and he does pretty well most of the time. And he's just amazing. He's just the most amazing person and such an inspiring person. And yeah, COVID's been a challenging time for him, but you know, we set up and I'll share a link with you later with Alexandra that we can share. But we came up with an idea that he could give a virtual walking tour of Cusco for $10, and because he had no way to make money, they had no safety net. There was no tourism in Peru. He was in deep trouble. And so we came up with this idea together, and it's been amazing to see him thrive and like have this opportunity to look forward to. And we've created a small little business of his own that he can give tours, and it's been just a really amazing experience. So, I mean, really my question for all of you that are listening is like, who is your Edgar? Who is that person that every single day can inspire you to look beyond yourself? And when you find that thing or that person, it changes your life.
So true. And such a great question to ask all of us, you know, and we feel a connection to Edgar now. So we would definitely like to help support his mission to become a tour guide. I don't know if there's a GoFundMe or if there's a way that we can donate through you to get to him, work with Alexander on that. But on behalf of all of us at Integrate, we'd love to help support his journey to be a tour guide. Sounds like such a special person and a driving force in your life. So yeah, thanks. Thanks for that. Work with Alexandra. We're happy to participate and help out.
Awesome. Thank you.
So you chose.
I love Alexandra's t-shirt, the Do Good shirt.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. She wore your t-shirt. Yeah, exactly. Talk a little bit about, well, first of all, what is a B Corp? Just to kind of familiarize everybody, and why did you want to start Cotopaxi as a B Corp?
Yeah, so a B Corp, it's interesting. I didn't really know anything about a benefit corporation or B Corps until I was in Brazil. Some classmates of mine from business school started a company called Warby Parker, and an eyewear company, and they had this social mission like attached to this business, and it immediately spoke to me. It was like, wait, you can combine business and like doing good. Like that was like, it just seemed like the things that I was like most passionate about could be tied together. And so after I learned about that, I knew that my next business was going to be a benefit corporation, which is basically, it's a for-profit business. It's this new model. It's saying basically capitalism is amazing, but it also sucks. Like capitalism has in some way, you know, it's pulled billions of people out of poverty. Since I graduated from high school, 1 billion people are out of extreme poverty because of the opening of markets. At the same time, we are destroying our planet. Like, you know, we are the air, you know, plastics in the ocean. I mean, we have to do a better job of protecting our planet. And that's what this movement's all about. It's saying, you know what, capitalism can work over the long term if we fix it. And instead of just worrying about maximizing shareholder value, maximizing profits, our purpose is to make the world a better place. And we're going to use our profits to do that. And we're going to care about people, and we're going to care about the planet. We're going to care about people in our supply chain, in our communities. And so that was so inspiring to me. So that's what I wanted to do with Cotopaxi. And you know, the one thing I really believed too was that it was not just about building a business or a brand that could do good, but it was about being part of a movement and inspiring other people and other businesses to do good themselves. And I believe that we could do that through our brand. And so the last, we started about 6 years ago, and it's been awesome. It's been so fun to see it us kind of realizing some of those dreams that we had.
So as a B Corp, do you have to bootstrap? I mean, I would imagine it's difficult to find investors who are like, yes, I want to invest. I don't want any return on my capital. We're going to donate all the profits. So that obviously puts you in conflict, right? With the venture world. So how do you start business? Like, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that integrate, and a lot have left and started companies, and they're scaling and doing great. And there's others who aspire to do that. And for those of us who want to start companies and maybe a B Corp, just walk us through kind of, what are the challenges to doing so?
Yeah, no, really great question. The reality is that fundraising was challenging. It's interesting. Our first lead investor, major investor, was a woman named Kirsten Green from Forerunner Ventures. She's a backer of Warby Parker, of Dollar Shave Club, of all these Birchbox, Away, all these great brands. She understood the vision that we had for this business, and she connected with the social purpose. Our next major investor was a woman named Ellie Wheeler. And then our next major investor was a woman named Brooke. And then our next one was a woman named Lauren. You might be catching on to like,
there's a theme here.
There's a theme here. Less than 5% of VCs are women. Women understand what capitalism needs to look like. They inject compassion and empathy into the boardroom, and frankly, into politics. And for me, it was something that was a great learning. And what I believe is that businesses like ours are the future. And there are profits that can be made, right? In these early days, we're giving away all the profits. But as the business scales and gets bigger and has more and more profits, we won't be giving away all the profits. There'll still be profits left over. And the argument that we really made was that this business is going to be more efficient in customer acquisition and retaining customers because people are impassioned about our purpose. And so it's basically not giving away our profits in the end. It'll be just spending less in marketing dollars that we would have had to spend as a normal brand. And we'll take those extra dollars and we'll put that towards impact. And so yeah, I think the model works.
Couldn't agree more. I think that's really well said, and can't wait till we live in a world where, especially in politics, there's more female presence. I think it's needed now more than ever. That's just my personal opinion, but I think the empathy and the humility piece that you hit on really resonates, with me. I have an older sister, and my mom and my grandmother, and the driving forces in my life, really have been women, and women like that, strong, but with an amazing amount of humility and drive. Davis, this has been awesome, man. We're living in a world where there's a lot of negativity, and a lot of divisiveness, and, people feeling disconnected from one another. And, this has been a great time spending with you of like, there's a lot of good in the world too. There's a lot of good people who are working on, being the change that they want to see, right? Be the change that you want to see in the world. And you're clearly doing that. So we so appreciate you, and we're excited to help support Edgar, and I'm sure you gain some Cotopaxi brand enthusiasts at Integrate as well. So we really appreciate you stopping by, and wish you all the best. Best of luck in your journey.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. I'm inspired by you and your story as well, and congratulations on the wonderful company you guys have all built together. Something to be very, very proud of.